Hi everybody, we're going to get going on the next session here. So thank you for joining us here today. My name is Andrew and I am from Uniform. And I want to talk to you about something. I know there's a lot of acronyms. I'm going to throw another one at you. It's called MACH. So, and we're going to be specifically talking about bridging the world. So MACH is all Microservices, API, Cloud, Headless. It's a coalition of SaaS vendors. And what I have observed over the last years, there tends to be a lot of battles between what's happening in the open source world and what's happening in the MACH Alliance world, because oftentimes customers pick one or the other. And what I'm hoping to present today, what I'm hoping to get across today is there can be a nice meeting of minds, meeting of middle ground, and that's what I'm looking to share with you all today. Part of it, and the reason I titled this Future-Proofing Your Drupal Strategy. So, Uniform is a cloud, MACH, SaaS vendor, and oftentimes when our customers are coming to the table and they're bringing Drupal with them, they are looking at a way of future-proofing their Drupal instance. They don't want to leave it behind. They love the open source nature. They want to have self-hosting. They want control over their content and data, but they want to take advantage of some of the benefits. Justin talked about this earlier, being able to use a global delivery network. So being able to deploy with quite a bit of flexibility, being able to take advantage of some of these things that are built into the SaaS platform, but take a bit of custom work to get going. So that's what we're going to get into today is, there's the old way where it's open source versus MACH, or open source versus SaaS. And what I'm describing as the new way, and something that this whole nature of interoperability, where we're bringing together the best bits of open source and SaaS platforms together. Before I jump in, so a little bit about myself. So I run what's called Customer Solutions and Tech Ecosystem. So Customer Solutions, it's helping our customers with their implementations of a variety of different digital platforms, digital initiatives. Sometimes pre-sales will help with demos and pitches, sometimes post-sales. I was on site and I visit a lot of our customers locally in Toronto from time to time. And then tech ecosystem. So Uniform has integrations with over 80 different systems. So CMSs like Drupal, but then a lot of the other CMSs that exist in the market, headless, non-headless, we connect to them. Commerce platforms, digital asset management systems, customer data platforms. So if you have a system that stores and manages everything about a customer, we can tap into that to start to personalize, localize content very neatly. So managing some of those partnerships is also within my remit. I used to work at a place called Contentful. Contentful had the CMS. I used to work at MuleSoft. MuleSoft's an integration framework. I used to work at TELUS. I was the head of digital platforms for 3 years. I did consulting engagements at Air Canada, Loblaw, Freedom, Four Seasons, Universal. I worked at Appnovation. Appnovation was back in 2010 to 2014, very, very hands-on in the Drupal ecosystem, and that's where I built up a lot of my expertise in the Drupal world. So I've worked at a bunch of places. All of this to say is I have failed a lot of things at a lot of different places. So I like to share my scar tissue or lessons learned, depending if you're optimist or pessimist. I use scar tissue. That's how I describe it. Some people call it experience. A little bit about Uniform. Uniform, there's over 100 digital teams across the globe using Uniform. We are distributed across 10 locations. This number is going to increment up. We're collating the data after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but we're pushing a lot of experiences every month. We talked about the 80 partners. Our customers tend to fall into a couple of industries. I'll get into that in a second. And we are funded. Now, I want to bring this up because I'm at a Drupal conference. And why would Drupal people care about MACH and the MACH Alliance? And Justin touched on this, right? There is a trend, there is a trajectory, there is an impetus of brands saying, okay, I've been with Drupal for a couple of years, I might be on 7, I might be on 8, I might be on my path to 10, right? There's some version collisions, and that is opening up ideas of like, well, what else is out there? We've built the Drupal bench, but what else should we be looking at? And these are the types of brands that have started to make the switch, that are started to look at, what else do I bring into my world, and how do I start using MACH and headless technologies and bringing cloud and SaaS and they may be doing a mix and match of open source and Drupal plus some of the latest stuff. So uniform, we have a collection of customers in the insurance and banking. By the way, this thing on the right, this section on the right, is no matter what industry we're in, the trends are the same. There's a shift from legacy DXPs, there's a shift from on-premise to cloud. MACH 2.0, I'll get into in a second. This is my argument, this is unique to Uniform, that MACH 2.0 can't just be SaaS vendors playing with other SaaS vendors, it's SaaS vendors plus open source, bridging the world together, and that's what we're going to get to. But this notion of having that lightning fast, modern front end, award-winning design and customer experience, this right here, how do we get to those long-term total cost of operations? And our core user base is called, it's a web producer. They're often not developers. They're often the people that the developer set up to go build experiences in a no-code way. So that's in insurance and banking. Bank of the West, originally in California, got acquired by BMO, so put a Canadian flag on that one. In telco, media, and technology, so TELUS I used to work at, I went to my old boss at TELUS and I was like, hey, I made a big mess at TELUS. I think I have a solution for you. Do you want to take a look at Uniform? So I got TELUS on board. Bell found us through the MACH Alliance. So the MACH Alliance is this alliance of vendors in the SaaS world. They were very adamant. Right? This is the largest telco in Canada that says the future of our digital presence will only be MACH. And that was strict in the RFP. That's how they found Uniform, and that's how they brought us on the table. Cirque du Soleil, they're based in Montreal. They're a Uniform customer. They're also making these shifts, right? So they're seeing this trend. So this is in our telco, media, and technology. Atlassian, if you've ever used Jira, we just got Atlassian on board. Some people love it, some people hate it, but they're a very tech-forward organization. Retail, travel, and hospitality. So Metrolinx, Mark is a Roomhammer. So Go Transit is using Uniform. They have started to make these shifts as well. And I won't go too much into there. Triumph Motorcycles, Four Seasons, Procter & Gamble. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I always put Pampers.com in the education kind of bucket because the amount of content on Pampers.com is unbelievable for like new parents, and they have this whole segmentation of are you early pregnancy, late pregnancy, newborn, baby, toddler, and based on how they categorize you in that journey, there was a whole breadth of content around, like my CTO and I joke about how we've become subject matter experts in colors of poop because of Pampers.com. Right? It's such a weird thing, but they put so much educational content out for parents, and that's part of Procter & Gamble. LCI Education, they are kind of a university, but LaSalle College in Montreal, but they also operate in 11 other countries. So they're not in one region. They actually need to take advantage of the SaaS, the global delivery networks, the content delivery networks. So Hillsborough County is really good. In 2025, we're going to have a very good customer story from them because last month they got hit by 2 hurricanes back to back. They're in Florida. So when you get hit by hurricanes back to back, they would see something on average like 200,000 page views, 200,000 API calls in a given month. Last month, they got 20 million hits in a 1-hour window because everyone in that county, all the population was hitting that website to learn where are my evacuation zones, where are my safe zones. It became a mission critical service for communicating to their 900,000 residents. And what we learned on the Uniform side was, hey, when they're updating the website 15 to 20 times in that given hour, those 20 million hits, that's not hitting a cache. That's hitting our APIs directly. So the power of Headless really on display here with that scenario where mission critical communications, that high frequency of volume. On our side, on our infrastructure, we did see a bit of a blip, but we were nervous. Like 2 hurricanes are hitting, and we're kind of the center point for all that communication. But no, everything worked out, and now we have a very happy customer, and we're hoping they're gonna sing our praises quite a bit in 2025. But we're happy and grateful that they got through those 2 hurricanes, and they were able to communicate and keep the residents safe. Yes, question.
Did they even notice that you did a good job?
Oh yeah, they noticed. They were, yeah, definitely. They were.
Sometimes it works well, and nobody's like, oh.
No, they were paying attention to it. They were hyper aware. On our side, we saw a blip. We didn't know what was happening. because we were all gearing up for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We were expecting way more traffic on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We did not expect this one spike. So everyone went and looked at it, and then we realized, oh, we need to, like, there are people navigating 2 hurricanes back to back. We need to stay attentive to this, right? So yeah, really good story there. Let's talk about some of the market shifts and the old ways. So this is kind of one of the running narratives that we have found. So my founders come from another large enterprise CMS. They've been working on this for 20 years. I used to work at Tenfold. I feel like if I look at this room and all the people, I feel like, is anyone going to disagree? I see some smiles, I see some nods. All right, so generally, okay, so this challenge, how do we get developers and marketers working together? How do we improve that workflow? And we're going to hear throughout the various different ways that, in this conference that folks are going to tackle this challenge. There is this that sat at the bottom, under 25% of marketers believe they have the right tools to succeed. That came from the Content Marketing Institute. So we have a challenge in our current way of working. Now, content today is not simple. So we're bucketing content in a few different ways here. Stable content that has low change frequency, your articles, your legal, your news, your blogs, your about us. But then you have volatile content that changes quite frequently. So like hurricane communication is changing every 5 minutes, right? It has an incredibly high frequency. Promotions, offers, call to actions. Then you have things that are put in a CMS that isn't even content. It's the presentation stuff. And your navigations, your footer, your sitemap, your breadcrumbs, your components, your variations, your animations, that often gets lumped. And we're seeing this a lot with a lot of the visual builders that are coming out is, I am now mixing and matching what is presentation and what is content. We've done decades of work to separate content and design, and now we're just jamming it all back together because all the headless CMSs are jamming it all back together. And I'm interested to see where Drupal and the new CMS goes, because I have a fear that it's going down this path of jamming presentation and content back together. And then what does the AI do? And this is something I learned from our customers at TELUS, is they have this jumbling of presentation data and raw content, and when they feed it into their AI algorithm, the AI just makes a mess of everything. It cannot determine what is presentation and what is content, and it can't generate with any sense of quality. So by implementing something like Uniform to really cleanly separate presentation from content, and then feeding the raw content into the AI models, all of a sudden, what the AI is generating is much better and much higher quality. So, I'm going to use a racing analogy about entering the race. So Uniform is and our tools, our customers, is doing more than just entering the race. Oftentimes, our customers come to the table, they already have a headless CMS, a hybrid CMS. I consider Drupal hybrid, right? I'm going to be showing a demo in a few moments of how Drupal and a headless way works with Uniform. They get something very powerful CMS. And then they want to use this decoupled front-end design system, component-based, and then they jam it all together and someone writes all this code in the middle. How many people in this room write this code in the middle? I've done it. Yeah, okay. This is the challenge that we're trying to solve at Uniform, but this is also the challenge that we're trying to solve around future-proofing Drupal. Right? We're seeing this with our customers that are coming with Drupal, spent many years at Appivation building Drupal sites like this. One of the major challenges, and we talked about that, design and component reuse, my content types start to look like my components. So I have a banner content type, I have a offer content type, I have a list content type, I have a card content type. But like, banner's not really content. That's just a visual representation of content. So my content model creates these scenarios where I have to copy and paste content across multiple entries in my CMS in order to get in the front end, because I've done this. So I end up in a scenario where I'm copying and pasting, but my components I can't reuse that frequently, and my content I can't reuse that frequently, and so, or I have to write a ton of code to be able to get that reuse. Another challenge, and Justin touched on this a little bit, right? When I have one system that has everything in it, it's really hard to deploy without other pieces of the puzzle being touched. And this is where deployment of a CMS, deployment of a new feature, deployment of iterations becomes quite difficult. So this is one of the challenges where everything lives in one, it ships as one, but it's kind of risky to do that shipping. So we have customers still today that will ship once every quarter, and they'll go, yeah, that's better than last year where we shipped once a year, but then we have customers that are shipping every day, right? And so there's kind of this trajectory to shipping smaller things more frequently and faster, and that's part of the challenge. So let's talk about the new way, and it really comes back to delivering those digital experiences that win business. So let's talk about MACH and MACH speed. MACH and the MACH Alliance, it stands for Microservices, APIs, Cloud Native SaaS, and Headless. And the MACH Alliance is this group of vendors, and AWS is in there, Google Cloud is in there, Contentful is in there, Commerce Tools is in there, there's a lot of vendors in there. And they have built kind of a mechanism or a principle, and it really fits in enterprise environments or complex environments, but it's about decoupling and having individual sources that can be shipped individually. So your experience management tool can be swapped, your CMS can be swapped, your campaign tool can be swapped, your search, your media, your assets, and so you have your front end, and this can be one-to-many websites or different mobile apps or screens or VR. You have this layer in the middle that helps you build and bundle and create. So this is very much where Uniform fits in this digital experience composition layer. And then you have APIs to go feed and get information from your other source systems. So I'm going to move out of here, for example. For those of you who are curious to learn more about the MACH Alliance, it's just machalliance.org. They have a bunch of information about the conference that's coming up. And here's a collection of the members that are in there. So there's ISVs, so different tools. There's startups, so we qualify as one of the startups. There are consultancies. There's a ton, and then there are enablers. So there's a ton of momentum building around this alliance, and we're seeing the customer trajectory. And then, so that's the MACH Alliance. Now coming back to the race car, okay, let's build on this analogy. So we're going to break it apart. So typically, there's content management, modern content management. I agree with you. I still think Drupal is in the modern content management realm. You know, I wouldn't necessarily call it legacy. If someone says to me Drupal 7, yeah, I'm going to call that legacy. If someone's Drupal 10 or above, it's pretty good. I'm there. Would you disagree?
No, that's right.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Justin. Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit more granular on where I draw that line. Experience management. So, what kind of tools and capabilities can you use to create? So a very clear definition. How you manage content is different than how you manage the experience, right? And that's kind of when I see these visual builders jam everything together, I think that's a bit of an anti-pattern. I've been trying to solve this problem for 2 decades. It's coming right back. I thought we solved this. Composability, so being able to mix and match the tools, right? So a lot of times, and we hear this from our customers in the Drupal ecosystem, is I can only use tools that are already in the Drupal ecosystem. But what if I want to use something from Adobe or something from Salesforce or something from somewhere else, and that plugin or module doesn't exist? And or the plugin or module does exist, hasn't been updated in 2 years. I don't know if it's going to work. And who's on the hook for updating it? So these are the types of scenarios where having this composability makes sense. Modern front end, and so this is something that changes quite frequently. A lot of our customers right now, they're using Next.js and React, and that's cool. But some of them are like, well, we're also thinking about Remix. And have you heard of this thing called Astro? Actually, we're going to use Kotlin or Swift on our mobile apps, right? So so what I have not heard is using like a template system, like using PHP for front end anymore. Like I'm seeing that less and less frequently. Very much so on back-end server-side operations, but on the front end, it's almost gone to that kind of JavaScript ecosystem. But even within the JavaScript ecosystem, there's a new framework. I don't know, every 2 or 3 months I hear about a new framework.
Every 2 minutes.
Yeah, every 2 days, right? So, but that's fine. That we want to give flexibility for the developers to pick the framework of their choice without having to go rebuild everything else. And this is part of the challenge is, hey, these components can be in any framework, can be in any model, can be in any tech stack. And that's fine because we have created an abstraction. So now this is where we want to go in this future way of model of operations where your content is not tied to your component. It's very generic. You have FAQs, you have offers, you have products. Then you have these components and you actually bind them together to build that experience. So we're calling this an experience model. So we have a content model, clean, reusable. We have an experience model that may be bespoke for one channel or one tech stack, and that's fine, because we can then reuse that content over and over and over again. And then edge optimization. This is another area where we're seeing a lot of demand, is being able to curate what that front-end experience looks like. So LCI Education is a good example in the education sector, where they're in 12 countries. So when they're in Montreal, the user base in Montreal, the user base in Canada, has like an iPhone 15 Pro and is on Bell or Telus or Wi-Fi, super fast internet, super powerful device. They get this brilliant experience with videos and overlays and animations. And then their customers in Tunisia have like a $99 phone, and they have very slow internet. So how do you put that type of experience in that user audience? It just breaks. So they are now curating the experience for that educational institution in Tunisia, and I wouldn't say it's downgraded. It still looks great. It's just tuned for that audience, tuned for those devices, so it's less bandwidth intensive, right? And so they're using the edge delivery network. And I remember talking to someone at a local university, and they're like, "Oh, my audience is in Toronto." I'm like, "Yeah, then uniform's probably overkill for your needs. That's fair, right? Like, we're not a good fit. But someone that's global will make use of that, and they'll need that." So these are kind of the pressing issues where someone wants to. Okay. So I'm going to go quicker. Some of the pressing issues, and I'm going to jump into a demo here. Front-end flexibility, so being able to swap the tools needed. Deployment flexibility. I don't mean offense to anyone in the room. Roland, I don't mean any offense. But when I hear from Drupal customers, they say I can deploy to Acquia. Sorry, Richard, you're in the room too. I can deploy to Pantheon, hi Roland. Or I do on-prem. What if I want to go AWS, Cloud, Vercel, Edge it out, right? So there is a bit of a sentiment that I only have 3 deployment options in the Drupal world, and we're saying, okay, when you start to move away and start to abstract, it does open up that flexibility. And then also CDN flexibility. I can use my Cloudflare Akamai Fastly. And then I can use multiple sources. I can bring my different tools together. So I can bring my mock technology, different DAM, different AI services. So these are kind of the drivers. And then, so in this diagram, so what we really want to get to is I can change that model front end at any time. I can also change my data sources at any time. But the stuff in the middle kind of stays the same. I don't have to throw away an entire Drupal instance. I can keep that in line. I don't have to throw away all of my front end code. I can keep that in line and just swap the pieces as needed. So I'm going to show a very, very quick demo here. Can everyone see my screen here? Yeah. So I have recipes. So I have these recipes here. Here's an example of, I have this deep Mediterranean quiche. I have it in a banner at the top. I have it below here with some additional details, and I have it down in a card view right there, deep Mediterranean quiche. So I have all of this data. This is in an Next.js React front end, but the data is actually stored inside of Drupal. So here's my recipe, here's all the details of my recipe, here's my tags, here's my image, here's my summary, all of my ingredients. So what I'm doing is I have one entry, very agnostic in Drupal, but I have it in 1 view, 2 view, 3 view. I also have it in a detailed view. So I'm being able to reuse that content across multiple components in my front end. How that comes together inside of Uniform, what I have here is, you'll see when I click on this, I have a little bit of content, decorator content stored locally, but this purple bubble is pulling from Drupal. So I have Drupal wired up in a headless way. I'm calling that Drupal instance, it's giving me that field. So this purple bubble here, that's a reference. That's coming out of Drupal. This description, it's a reference. It's coming out of Drupal. But further down below, when I get into these details, it's the same reference. It's the same piece of content coming from that same API response from Drupal. Now, one of the benefits of this approach is I can lock down that Drupal instance. I don't need to expose it to the public. Uniform can sit in the middle, pull it out of Drupal, cache it, distribute it to a global content delivery network, and get all of those great performance benefits, but I don't have to worry too much about my Drupal instance being exposed to public. I can still store everything locally, have it in a highly secure environment. And then when I get into this details, I also have a template, so I can feed all of my different recipes into one given template. So I get a question often, there's a new visual builder coming out in the Drupal ecosystem, what's the difference? Well, 1, Uniform's here, like it's live, you can use it today. 2, it works across any CMS. So right now I'm pulling out of Drupal, but when I go over to something like a home page, here what I can do is I can pull out, here I have this bag coming out of Commerce Tools. I have this, here's my Drupal 10 recipe. And what I'm doing is I can also mix and match my data sources and target them to different people. So here's one banner at the top, but this one's being targeted at high income users. Then I can target someone who is interested in, who's from California. I can serve them content from California. So I can show more about this, but it's a very quick intro to how I can mix and match and bring together SaaS, open source, and benefit from the advantages of both. I'm 1 minute over. That's all I got. Thanks, everybody.